Engines roar, lights blur, one wrong turn, and everything shatters. Screeching tires, flying glass, pure chaos. Every frame is real, every second electric. Hold on tight and buckle up. At the junction, one car begins a cautious turn, but another speeding straight through crashes into it. The quiet street erupts with the sound of impact. The motorist pulls to the side after noticing odd sounds from his vehicle. When he lifts the hood, smoke starts billowing out, thickening quickly as the motor overheats. A driver attempts to stage a crash, swerving sharply toward a nearby car. When that fails, they reverse straight into another vehicle, unaware the whole stunt is captured on camera. The motorist tried to pass a bus, but misjudged the gap, colliding with a passing vehicle and causing a shocking, horrific wreck. The small car fishtails out of control on the slick road. It slides straight into a parked truck, the impact reverberating through the quiet street. An intoxicated driver swerves erratically along the roadside. Again and again, he smashes into the barriers, turning the roadway into a scene of havoc. The car strikes a deep pothole at top speed, one that acts like a ramp. In an instant, it launches into the air, soaring several meters before smashing back down onto the road. An SUV tries to cut in front of a truck, but the truck won't give way. Forced to respond, the SUV veers onto the shoulder, barely avoiding a crash. A car speeds toward a junction as another begins to turn. With the road glazed in ice, the driver has no chance to stop, and the collision is sudden and severe. The car ahead begins to weave unpredictably. Moments later, the driver behind can't react in time, and a sudden crash ensues. A speeding car fails to notice a stopped vehicle ahead. The collision turns the parked car into a ramp, catapulting the speeding vehicle into the air for a startling, gravity-defying moment. A Kamaz lorry rolls over the crossing just as a train nears. In a heartbeat, the hulking engine rams it, hauling the truck for several meters and leaving only mangled debris in its wake. An intoxicated driver zigzags down the street in mayhem. One after another, parked cars fall prey to his reckless route. An ordinary day on the roadway turns chaotic in a heartbeat as two vehicles smash together. One erupts in flames while stunned motorists hurry to assist from a safe distance. At the junction, two cars attempt to pass at the same time. In a blink, their paths intersect, sending shockwaves through the crossing. The truck lost control and slammed into a car. A stark reminder of how quickly crashes can happen. At a smelting facility, a driver carefully tips waste into the molten pool. Suddenly, the molten metal bubbles and erupts, splashing searing liquid onto the vehicle. A firefighting helicopter hovers low over the lake to scoop up water. But with a sudden loss of control, it tips and plunges straight into the water below. A sudden turn goes disastrously wrong as an SUV climbs over another car. In seconds, the smaller vehicle is squashed beneath its weight. At the intersection, several drivers flout the rules, rushing to beat the light. Their impatience ends abruptly in a loud, chaotic pileup. A car reverses out of a parking space but veers off course. It grinds along the sidewalk railing, warping metal with each jolt. The truck driver doesn't realize his vehicle has rolled under a fence. As he steps on the accelerator, the truck strains against the metal until the rear wheels lift off the ground, pinned by the barrier behind. A small car travels too near a heavy lorry on a crowded road. In an instant, it's pulled beneath the enormous wheels, leaving no time to respond. A car pulls out to overtake on a sharp bend, the driver confident for just a moment too long. Suddenly, the vehicle skids out of control, overturns, and crashes onto the roadside. A driver shows off by drifting in a supermarket car park. But the thrill ends quickly. The car spins out of control and crashes into a pole. On the icy road, a car loses control and skids into an oncoming lorry. The impact is savage, and within seconds, the car erupts into flames. A calm morning commute erupts into chaos as a city bus collides head-on with a heavy truck. What started as an ordinary drive suddenly turns into a fight for survival. A woman steps off the sidewalk, oblivious to the oncoming fast-moving car. The motorist jerks the wheel at the last moment, only to smash into the parked car behind. The car's driver nodded off and drifted into the oncoming lane. The truck collided at full speed, leaving no chance of escape. The bus swerves wildly as the driver struggles to regain control. Moments later, it crashes into the roadside barrier with a shuddering impact. The SUV's driver nods off in traffic, hands still on the wheel. Moments later, the vehicle plows into a stationary car stuck at the head of the jam.
From Victor Martins, is he going to take the lead from Alex Dunn? Oh!
During the race, a single error triggers a domino effect. Cars spin out, collide, and stack up in a massive wreck across the track. At a busy junction, a bus approaches too fast to stop in time. It slams into a small car ahead, a moment of misjudgment with devastating consequences. At a busy junction, two trucks slam into each other. One rolls onto its side, dumping sand from its open bed across the roadway. The car slides over a sheet of ice, its tires losing all traction. A moment later, it pirouettes across the center line and crashes head-on with an approaching vehicle. The helicopter descends cautiously toward the touchdown area, but an abrupt lean turns accuracy into calamity as it slams down on contact. A compact car grazes the side of an SUV while changing lanes. The hit sends the larger vehicle tumbling over in a violent spin. The driver nods off for just a moment. That moment is enough. The car smashes into a truck's rear wheel and overturns violently. The rider attempts to load his motorbike into the back of a pickup using a simple ramp. But as the front wheel reaches the truck bed, balance is lost, and both man and machine tumble to the ground. As the truck rumbles down the road, a hefty icicle snaps off its roof. In an instant, it crashes onto a passing car, a chilling reminder of hidden winter hazards. Two aircraft collide mid-air, spiraling out of control. Moments later, one slams into the ground and detonates in a massive fireball. The plane picks up speed along the runway, engines thunder with power. Suddenly it comes apart and detonates, turning the takeoff into a blazing catastrophe. A gasoline tanker drifts onto the shoulder as the driver nods off. It slams into a fence, and within seconds, the rear tank flips and detonates in a fiery blast witnessed by passing cars. The car slides helplessly across the icy surface, its tires spinning without traction. Moments later, it drifts off the road and comes to rest in the snowy ditch. A motorcyclist rides onto the railway lines, unaware of the approaching train. In the last second, he leaps clear as his bike is smashed beneath the speeding locomotive. A small car surges ahead with no sign of slowing. In an instant, it slams full force into the back of a truck, the jolt rattling the entire roadway. A car moves to pass, unaware of another vehicle right behind it. After a brief cutoff, the driver panics, yanks the wheel, and the car spins out, smashing into a roadside fence. An ambulance barrels through a red light, sirens wailing. But a speeding car enters the same junction, colliding with it and flipping the ambulance onto its side. A car rear-ends the vehicle ahead, the impact jolting it off course. Moments later, it crashes into a roadside pole, coming to an abrupt stop. The camera captures a startling scene, a bus engulfed in towering flames. Thick smoke billows skyward as the fire devours the vehicle within moments. The car skids uncontrollably on the icy road, its tires scraping for traction. A second later, it crashes into an oncoming vehicle, a split-second slip turning into calamity. The small car loses grip on the icy surface, sliding sideways across the road. In an instant, it crashes into a truck turning into the lane, the collision sudden and unavoidable. The car skids on the icy road, the driver struggling to regain control. But as it spins around, the rear end slams into a passing truck, the struggle ending in a violent crash. A driver films a truck crawling down the road. Its twisted chassis and smashed panels lay bare the aftermath of a serious wreck. At a busy junction, two cars approach from different directions at high speed. In a split second, one slams into the side of the other, the crash echoing through the crossing. A car blasts through a red light, disregarding the danger. From the right, a massive truck charges into the junction, plowing into the car before rolling over it. A sudden halt on a crowded road sets off a domino effect. 3 vehicles are wrecked in the pileup, while the at-fault driver speeds off without a backward glance. A car makes an unlawful turn, forcing the truck behind it to swerve hard. The truck plows into cars waiting at the light before overturning, a single reckless act spiraling into a full-blown calamity. A compact car pulls out to pass, misjudging the gap ahead. In an instant, it crashes head-on with an oncoming lorry. A van tries to cross the railway just as the barriers descend, trapping it on the tracks. With nowhere to go, the driver can only wait until a speeding train plows into the rear of the vehicle. A compact car tries to pass on a narrow stretch of road. In an instant, it crashes head-on with an oncoming truck. One rash maneuver triggers calamity. After being cut off, the second motorist loses control and crashes into a roadside fence. Two cars reach the junction from opposing directions. In a split second of miscalculation, they crash, flinging debris across the roadway. The truck driver lost command and slammed into a car, a stark reminder to stay vigilant on the road. A driver wedges a bottle inside the steering wheel, laughing as he films himself, hands-free. But the moment of fun turns to panic when the truck wanders off the road and crashes violently. A truck loaded with bricks was traveling in the opposite lane when one flew off and smashed into a car's windshield. Fortunately, the driver walked away with just a fright. A passing car's dashcam records an unremarkable stretch of roadway when, without warning, a blazing crimson blast billows up like a mushroom cloud, saturating the sky with shock and awe. A heavy lorry loses traction on the icy road, its trailer lurching uncontrollably. Within seconds, it crosses the center line and slams into another truck coming from the opposite direction. A man pours petrol on the road, chasing a dramatic effect. But when the flames catch his own car, he's forced to jump out and sprint for his life as it erupts into fire. The small car loses control on the slick road. It slides sideways and crashes into a parked vehicle with a dull, heavy thud. Two cars charge toward each other on a snowy road, visibility fading in the winter haze. A moment later, they collide head-on, the force of impact scattering debris across the frozen ground. On a snowy roadway, a car loses traction and starts to slide sideways. Within moments, it slams into a stone wall, scattering debris across the white landscape. The driver loses control and drifts onto the shoulder. Within seconds, the car skids sideways and overturns with a thunderous crash. At a busy junction, two vehicles cross paths. In an instant, a loud smash disrupts the flow of traffic. The truck's brakes fail and it launches off the road, tumbling down the steps. For a moment, the vehicle hangs in the air, nearly overturning before slamming to the ground and continuing its wild drive. At a crowded junction, a car speeds through and slams into a passing van. The collision is so forceful that the van overturns, coming to rest on its side. Two heavy lorries collide with a thunderous impact. Moments later, one of them ignites, sending thick smoke billowing into the sky. A delivery lorry loses control on a congested stretch of roadway. The collision with a heavy barrier sends the larger truck rolling onto its side in a plume of dust. The car slides on the slick road and drifts across the center line. In the next moment, it crashes head-on with an approaching vehicle. A driver starts drifting in a supermarket car park, tires screeching across the tarmac. But control slips away, and the car smashes straight into the shopping cart bay. At a busy junction, a fire engine speeds through with sirens wailing, but a small car cuts across its path, and the two smash together in a sudden jarring crash. At the junction, Two cars enter from opposite directions. Neither yields, and they crash in a sudden, violent impact. A speeding car loses control and swerves off course. It slams into a row of parked vehicles, sending shards of metal and glass flying. A speeding car races down the road too close to the vehicle ahead. In a split second, it slams into the back of an SUV, the impact echoing through the air. A heavy lorry loses control on the icy road, swerving across the center line. In a split second, it crashes head-on into another truck coming from the opposite direction. Losing control on the slick road, the car slides into the opposite lane. A moment later, it smashes into an approaching vehicle with tremendous force. Roadside poles came crashing down onto the passing vehicles, but thankfully, no one was hurt. Two heavy lorries surge toward each other on the open road. In a split second, they collide head-on, a violent impact that leaves mangled metal in its wake. At a congested junction, the bus struggles to stop in time. In a heartbeat, it collides with a compact car ahead, the impact reverberating through the crossing. The paved road gave way right beneath a moving car, a terrifying moment captured on camera. A heavy lorry starts to slide, its tires struggling for traction. Moments later, it swerves into the oncoming lane and topples, collapsing under its own momentum. A man steps into the road, oblivious to the danger ahead. The speeding lorry swerves to avoid him, but the shoulder collapses, sending the massive vehicle plunging into the river below. Two cars enter the junction from different directions, neither gives way, and their crash sends a sharp jolt through the crossing. A pedestrian crosses the road away from the crosswalk, unaware of the danger. Drivers slam on their brakes over the icy surface, but instead of stopping, the cars collide with each other in a desperate attempt to avoid him. A truck hauls a car on a rope, moving steadily along the bumpy road. When it strikes a hump, the towed vehicle sways violently to the side, smashing into several parked cars, leaving a wake of damage behind. A racer pushes his car to the edge, but control slips away. The vehicle slams into a barrier at top speed, erupting in a sudden blazing explosion. A car hurtles down the highway when suddenly a wheel comes off. It bounces along the lane and smashes into the windshield of the vehicle behind. A car moves to pass and tries to merge back into its lane too quickly. It skids, spins out of control, and collides with an oncoming vehicle. A heavy truck loaded with concrete beams struggles to keep steady on icy pavement. As it skids out of control, the massive beams spill into the opposite lane, barreling straight toward oncoming traffic. A car carrier lorry hauling several vehicles loses balance on the road. Within moments, it tips over, sending the loaded cars tumbling across the asphalt. The driver loses command as the car slides across the slick roadway, spinning into the oncoming lane and crashing head-on with an approaching vehicle. At an intersection, a small mound of dirt and a downed tree sit in the middle of the road. A speeding car strikes them head-on, launching into the air before smashing back down with a thunderous impact. A passing van drives onto the railway crossing without noticing the oncoming train. Within seconds, it's hit by the speeding train in a powerful, unstoppable crash. The rocket lights and begins its climb, optimism rising with it, but within seconds a thunderous blast devastates the pad, signaling a disastrous failure. The driver nods off, his car gradually drifting into the oncoming lane. A truck approaches head-on, and the crash is immediate and catastrophic. The vessel glides calmly over the water, its occupants at ease and unsuspecting. Suddenly, fire breaks out on deck, and the crew scrambles frantically to extinguish the blaze.
Na to samo wychodzi. Ale to wiesz, to na chuj tu wiesz, tu nie musimy za pośrednika płacić, czyli nie musimy im płacić, wiesz, musimy tylko...
Two cars approach the junction from opposite directions. What looks like a routine turn turns into chaos as they smash head-on in a split second. A truck's wheel flew off and struck the car behind. The hit was so forceful that the car overturned. On a quiet village lane, a driver loses control. The car veers off course and slams straight into a utility pole. Hitting a slick stretch of ice, the driver fights to regain control. But the skid only intensifies, ending in a violent collision with a car coming from the opposite direction. A large lorry barrels down the opposite lane with its rear door flapping open. As it passes a small car, the door snags it, hauling the helpless vehicle along in a terrifying instant. The truck skids on the slick road, its tires losing grip. Moments later, it slams into the car ahead with a heavy, crushing impact. At a busy junction, two cars collide in a sudden smash. Moments later, at the very same spot, an SUV loses control and crashes into a pole. The driver brakes hard without warning, leaving the car behind no time to respond. Forced to swerve into the oncoming lane, the trailing vehicle collides head-on with another car. Trying to outrun the police, the driver slams into another vehicle. Within seconds, he leaps out and bolts on foot, leaving turmoil behind. The video captures a single curb where vehicles of every kind keep wrecking. Cars, motorcycles, even scooters. It's as if this stretch of road is jinxed, claiming one driver after another. A driver moves to overtake, pulling into the adjacent lane without checking ahead. But another car is already there, and the two collide instantly. Inside the warehouse, rows of electronic merchandise sit tidily stacked. Then sparks appear, and within moments, flames race outward as panicked workers sprint to get out. Driving along a frozen shoulder, the truck's wheel slips onto the snowy verge. As it spins helplessly, the huge vehicle begins to slide until it finally tips off the road into the drift below. A car began smashing into everything around it, and a nearby motorist rushed over, only to find, unbelievably, that a dog was at the wheel trying to steal the car. The race car clings to the rim of the circuit, showers of sparks shooting from its wheels. But as it grinds along the barrier, flames burst out, swallowing the machine in moments. A cyclist crosses the road without getting off. The car ahead brakes sharply to avoid hitting him, but the vehicle behind can't stop in time and crashes into it. A reckless driver cuts sharply in front of another car. The startled motorist swerves, loses control, and smashes violently into the roadside fence. As a moose darts across the icy road, the bus driver swerves to avoid it. The massive vehicle skids uncontrollably, sliding sideways over the frozen surface. During takeoff, the aircraft struggles to stabilize. Suddenly, it pitches downward and crashes, followed by a massive blast that illuminates the runway. A truck slammed into a bus at high speed, startling the man who was hurrying toward it. He might have been late for work, but fortune kept him outside. At a snowy junction, one car blasts through without slowing down. In an instant, it slams into another vehicle, the crash echoing across the frozen streets. A compact car loses control and crashes into an ambulance ahead. The blow sends the emergency vehicle skittering across the ice, sliding helplessly toward the shoulder. Inside a repair shop, a luxury car is raised for maintenance. But when the supports give way, the vehicle drops to the floor, sustaining severe damage in seconds. In wintry conditions, a car lost control and smashed into another at top speed, a truly harrowing crash on slick, icy roads. The plane swerves off course, losing command as it drops. Moments later, it crashes into a barrier, sparking a huge blast that wraps the area in flames. A dump truck dumps tons of soil into a pit, the ground trembling beneath it. But the weight shifts abruptly, and the entire truck pitches forward, plunging into the hole along with its load. A truck loses grip on the icy road, spinning like a merry-go-round. After several rotations, it slides straight into a parked car with a heavy impact. The video shows a deceptively mild bend that appears harmless at first glance. One car smashes into the guardrail, another gets a tire blowout, and a third meets the same end as if the turn itself were jinxed. The car miscalculates the gap and gently taps a motorcycle slowing ahead. Fortunately, the rider maintains his balance and no one is injured. A car attempts to merge into the right lane, miscalculating the gap. It grazes the vehicle ahead, overturns, and comes to a halt upside down in the middle of the road. A heavy lorry stalls in the middle of the level crossing. Moments later, a fast-moving train rams into it, ripping through the metal in a brutal collision. A speeding car races down the highway, closing in fast. In an instant, it slams into the rear of a moving truck with a thunderous crash. The car in front keeps weaving, blocking every effort to overtake. Once it's finally passed, the driver tries to merge back in, but loses control and slams into a roadside fence. The driver nods off behind the wheel, the car slowly drifting over the center line. When he comes to, it's too late. A truck is bearing straight toward him, and the crash is unavoidable. A moment of lapse is all it takes. One vehicle slams into another, the quiet street erupting with the screech and grind of metal on metal. The car loses control on the icy pavement, sliding sideways into approaching traffic. Within seconds, it crashes into a moving truck, the impact rattling the entire roadway. Losing control on the ice, the truck slides off the road and barrels toward the sidewalk. In seconds, it crashes straight into a city storefront, shattering glass and scattering debris everywhere. A tractor climbs a slight incline, fighting to keep its balance. Suddenly, it leans too far and rolls backward, crashing heavily onto the ground. Crazy crashes, epic saves. Don't blink. Like and subscribe for more jaw-dropping moments.